Aloha and welcome to our High Film Live panel, Rights, Rhythms, and Real Stories. My name is Jana Park. I am the High Film Industry Manager here at Hawaii International Film Festival, and we're really excited for you all to join us for this exciting panel for the next hour, talking about using music and working with music managers and entertainment lawyers in indie films. So I would actually like to bring on our panelists and not wait any longer. We have entertainment lawyer Julia Brotman. We have composer, publisher, and Craft Brewz music, Chaz Umamoto. We have music supervisor, Whitney Pilzer. And we have catalog manager, Fernell Newton. So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, I just wanted to point out that we have, we're zooming in from all over, right? So we have Farnell from Portland, Chaz happens to be on Maui, and Julia and Whitney are on Hawaii Island, and I am here in Manoa. So I love that we're all over and we're welcoming people from all over the world. We're going to start with you, Chaz, and we'll get right to it. I was hoping that you would tell us first just a little bit about Craft Brewz music, because that's, what has brought us together. And then, just as an introduction, walk us through the basic steps of how an indie filmmaker, right, is working. I'm an indie filmmaker, right? So I'm making a film and I want some really good music. I want some bespoke music that is going to elevate my film. And maybe I do, maybe I don't have a relationship directly with composers or musicians, right? So instead of just going directly to them, if I come to you, take me through that. Like, what are the steps? And then everyone else,
Sure.
like we said, feel free to chime in as we go along. And then we will get deeper into this. And I want to just let everyone know who's listening, we will have a time for question and answers. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we will have time for that. But yeah, Chaz, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Well, yeah, just in short, to your question, about like our origins as a company at Craft Brewz Music. I was in LA, up until 2019, but in 2017, I left my band. And I found that, wow, there's all these folks in LA that are sitting at home making money from music, and they were working in film and television and advertising. And I found that so compelling. And the skill sets that I had at that time were really conducive specifically towards making music for those formats. We had originally started the company with the intention of making music with folks in Hawaii, but as a music production team. And when I moved home in 2019, what I found was people didn't need a music production team or another composer, producer. What they needed was um, collaborators and peers that would come alongside them and point them in the right direction or even help them represent them and the music that they make. And so, yes, I am a composer. I have written a lot of music for film and television, produced a lot of music, worked with a lot of the artists that we love here in the islands as well as elsewhere. But I also, as a publisher, now represent artists and other composers and producers here in Hawaii. And a lot of times, people might be contacting them, and then they're calling me for advice or to get involved and negotiate and review maybe the deal points of their contract. So that's just a little bit about ourselves. And I think your other question was kind of like talking through like what's the process of getting music. Um, I think a lot of times, like, yeah, you're gonna just contact your this artist that you are enamored with. And what I would say is, I think we do appreciate that. And I think almost every composer and producer on the island has some sort of representation. And when we are contacted to work on your project, it is a little awkward sometimes to go through a list of questions and say like, hey, like, what's your budget? Do you have a music supervisor, or like what is your end goal with this project? And it is nice to work with our representation or our publishers or anyone that we work with, like our entertainment lawyers like Julia here, um, because there's just difficult questions that maybe we want to navigate, outside of just like the excitement of like what is the creative vision, what is the world in which your film lives in. And so what I would say is a really easy step is to go and just ask them like, hey, like as a courtesy, is there someone that you'd like us to talk to as well for us to enlist your services to bespoke, write music for your film? Or is there music that you have that you'd be willing to license to us for our project? I would say like that's the basic step one. And another thing you can do is if you go to songview.com, you can find composers and their publishers that represent them. Um, if you see a pattern of, hey, they're working consistently with the same publisher, it might be themselves, but you'll find like their email address, sometimes like their phone number, and you can contact and reach out to their publisher and find out like, hey, we'd love to get in contact with such and such person in regards to our project. Um, I hope that's helpful. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. And so if we're once we're talking about the larger projects, right? Like slightly larger budgets, even with indie films, then for example, maybe they're working with a music supervisor, right? Like Whitney. So Whitney, if you could just share about what that is, because a lot of us who have worked on the really small projects, we couldn't afford a music supervisor, right? But
Mhm.
as we get into, and as Hawaii itself and native Hawaiian filmmakers and Hawaii-based filmmakers are starting to get into these bigger feature film projects, and we're seeing Hawaii-based films premiering at Sundance, what is that? What do you do? Tell us, right? If I've never worked with a music supervisor, yeah, just share more. You have so much, and I just need to say too, like your IMDb is so impressive. You have worked on so many shows and films, and it's just, I mean, I was looking at it, everything from Euphoria, Ocean's 8, and you've worked as a music supervisor and a music coordinator and an executive in charge of music. But I would say for our purposes, when you're thinking about, say, a medium budget indie film, how
Mhm.
would you, yeah, tell us
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. So, I have had the pleasure of working on the big, shiny projects, but I've also, worked on quite a few indie films and shorts, and I love working with creators. And I would say the biggest thing, honestly, is if you're able to bring in a music supervisor like way earlier than you would think. Music supervisors are one of the only people in production that are brought on like at the script level all the way through delivery. So even when you're in the script stages and you're, coming up with ideas that you're throwing around, bring in the music supervisor then so that you can kind of manage your expectations, budget appropriately, and come up with creative solutions. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of, an indie film has like picked a song they love, they shoot to it, and then all of a sudden they're in post and they're tied to something that they can't even have. And sometimes it's not even a budget issue, it might be a clearability issue. So I would say bring in a soup as early as possible. Someone that's been supervising a while, will have different creative solutions, whether that's say you're in love with a Rolling Stone song and you just don't have the budget for it. We can help you find something that can accomplish that same emotion, but that'll fit your budget. We can help you get really creative with the rights package that you're going after, whether that's, say that you just want to be able to perform or to show at a film festival, right? And then you want to do like a step deal if you, end up, hitting the box office and all that stuff. There's a lot of creative ways to kind of budget, but I would say to bring in a supervisor as early as possible is one of the best things that you can do.
Awesome. And so just to be clear for folks who like on a fundamental level, what I'm hearing is that a music supervisor is going to help you with legal, right?
Mhm.
Potential musical legal things, budgeting and like, how you're dealing with that, but
Mhm.
also creatively, right? On both sides. So you're
Yeah.
talking about kind of contractual things and also, hey, like you said, I really like this vibe. I really want Rolling Stones. No budget for that. But you're
Right.
like, but you could also be like, okay, but here's some other bands that are very Rolling Stones that are up and coming that'll license their music for $500 or something like that.
Absolutely.
Um, so that's it's a nice, it's you do kind of all of that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then how do you work with, say, Julia, who we were just saying is from Hawaii Island? So like, and I grew up on Molokai, so we're like, you know, the outer island. I love that. Yeah, Julia, so I mean, you've worked also, I think, on a range of projects, right? And then how would you work with someone like Whitney as a music supervisor, you know, in relation to like what the filmmakers would need to know?
Yeah, so I I work kind of in all areas of this because sometimes my clients are filmmakers, sometimes my clients are the musicians, the songwriters. So I come at these kind of clearance issues from all over the place. Um, Honestly, usually if the project has a music supervisor, they don't need me because the music supervisor is the one doing all that clearance work. Sometimes they come to us if it's a particularly tricky clearance problem. Um, and they need help doing some of the copyright research. But someone like Whitney, you know, who's been doing this for a long time, is going to know what to do and what stones to look under and how to, you know, clear stuff, or if something isn't clearable, as she said. So we actually probably wouldn't be working together too much. It's almost like an either or. I also, on the other side of things, end up working with a lot of music clients who will say, hey, someone wants to license my song. Can you take a look at this sync deal? You know, what's going on here? Or again, like if there is no supervisor involved, sometimes they're asking me to draft forms and help with, you know, kind of papering a deal and things like that. But we do, you know, for our filmmaker clients, sometimes like we'll put together a whole package of production documents. So that'll include some of the music licensing stuff and different kinds of deals. As Whitney said, sometimes it's a step deal, which I think is really important for people to know as an option, because I've had a lot of people who don't know about that. I don't know if we should talk about it a little bit more, but so Whitney kind of started to explain this, but it's like, if you can't afford, you know, a big license fee that just covers everything, you can say, okay, this is how much we're going to pay you for the film festival circuit. And then if you go to streaming distribution, it's going to increase to this amount. Or if it goes to theatrical release, then it's going to be like this. And so you have really clear markers. And so you can budget, and if you're expanding with your distribution route, what you need to budget for your music. But that way you can open the door to something and have, you know, maybe it makes a song available that wouldn't have been otherwise. And I just find that a lot of filmmakers don't know about that path. So it's an important tool to have in your tool belt.
That's super helpful. Yes. So I mean, like, how would you know, you know what I mean? Like, as a filmmaker, if I get a music supervisor, would it be, if I have a lot of music, I should definitely get a music supervisor. And if it's just this one song, maybe I'm just going to check with the entertainment attorney on this one thing. Or is it just depend on the situation? Like, how would an indie filmmaker go about kind of knowing, like you said, if it's one or the other? Just, you know, if you guys have any tips on that.
I mean, it just depends. It just really all just depends. A lot of times, if they go to an artist directly, that artist might not know all the details about clearing their songs and even how much they should even charge and such like that. So it's always good to have someone like Julia, because I usually reach out to my lawyer, or I recommend a lawyer and say, hey, you should reach out to them and figure those things out. But I do love when a filmmaker already or director already has a music supervisor, because say Whitney is looking for that Rolling Stone song, but doesn't have any leads to it. And then she's going to contact us at Marmoset and see what do we have in our system that is very similar. She might say, hey, I need a song that has a very similar BPM tempo. I need it to be in a certain year. It might need to be 65 to 1970. And I got to be able to use it for independent film. And then we go through our catalog and finding the best songs that we believe that we feel that could fit that spot. Because sometimes film directors and filmmakers fall in love with the temp track, and we could give them something very similar that they could use, and also easier to clear. And if they need to clear it for just a film circuit, or if they need it for streaming, or if they need it for a theatrical release and such, they could do all of those things at Marmoset as well. So
could I add something
yeah,
to that too?
absolutely.
So like, you know, you brought up a really good point about temp tracks. You know, like a lot of times people get really, um, we say demo-itis, or like really attached to temp tracks, and you might not be able to clear that temp track, not knowing who the rights owners are for the recording, the rights owners for the composition rights. And I would say, like, I'd love to get involved really early if I were the composer, because then I can give you temp tracks that I know are easy to clear, knowing like maybe what the parameters of budgeting are for the film. And sometimes it's easier to beat a temp track of my own than it is something that you've been working on for years. Um, and I'll give you one particular instance of a license that happened in the last couple of years for myself. Um, I have my own catalog of music, but someone reached out and said, "Hey, I love this song that you produced and wrote called As You Should, and we're going to use it." This was Tony Dia, and he used it for his short film I Am, which I believe has premiered at HIF. And I said, "Oh, well, that's perfect. Like, I don't own all of the rights to the song, but if you contact Marmoset, who does have the rights, they're wonderful and they're going to work with you, and they'll make it really, really easy to license the song." So if it were a different type of song in that nature, I might not have licensed it, or have been able to create something custom for this composer, but they loved that as a temp track. I think they just used it as a temp track because they knew the other artists on the song. And Marmoset was able to easily license that song for $250 to Tony, specifically for film festivals. And I'm thankful that, you know, like the way that they do things, they do really, really cater and make it easy for filmmakers to work with them, especially for these smaller licenses.
That's awesome. I've seen that film. It's a beautiful film, and it's got a great soundtrack. Thanks to you guys, apparently. So that's awesome. And Farnell, I just wanted to point out that it was so fun to research you because it says like trumpeter, family man, teacher, and marmoset artist, and A&R team member extraordinaire. And that, you know, you spent the last 17 years building a community in the Portland jazz scene. And so then I went like on this dive into the lo-fi jazz soul and like looking at the, you know, strings in the kitchen tracks and all that. And they're just amazing. They're blowing me away. So I wanted to ask you though, just a little bit, you know, getting a little personal, and which I think is always fun for people to hear. Like, how is that working on both sides of it? Like, and how did you come to, obviously you're a musician, and then how did you come to being on the, you know, Marmoset A&R team member extraordinaire?
Yeah, I mean, I wear a lot of hats. So I started as an artist at Marmoset back in 2013 because one of their music supervisors at the time, Eric Norby, was a student of mine at Portland State University. He was taking a jazz history course, and uh, and I've always kept in touch with him. And I toured around the world with a bunch of different artists like Jill Scott and Bootsy Collins. And then I decided that I didn't want to tour anymore, you know, wanted to focus on my family. And so I reached back out to Eric, and I ended up becoming the 40-year-old intern at Marmoset Music. And for me, it's been kind of, you know, it's a little bit sometimes of a bumpy ride trying to, you know, trying to like stay like my pure artist self, and also like make music that I know the client is going to love and want. So I have to kind of like weigh in between like the agency life and also me just being a musician. But I think I found a happy medium over the years and really learned how to be able to live both together, to still provide funky music, soulful music that'll make your head bob and nod, but at the same time, still providing exactly what the client, the end client needs. No matter if it's for an independent film or if it's for Nike or for Uber or whoever.
Thank you so much for sharing that. One of the questions I did want to ask you, which I think Chaz sort of alluded to, was what size budget of indie film, what's the range? But it sounds like pretty much any range. I mean, like, I know I produced a short film probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, where the director was really in love with this track that was like on Shutter Island, that film Shutter Island. and it was just a score, you know what I mean? It was like this, like, and he loved it. It's this orchestra, you know, and I was like, I was very skeptical, like, you're not going to get that. But he reached out and he was able to get it for festivals for 1 year for $500. So that really opened my eyes to like, hell yeah. And that, like what you just said, Chaz, that Tony was able to get it for 250. So that's definitely in the range of what our indie filmmakers are doing. And that's something, it sounds like you can also though put in the steps, like you're saying, Julia and Whitney, right? So that you're not closing yourself off, but that you can get in and you can start there, right? Okay, thank you so much. All right, I have some more really questions. You guys are so awesome. I have some more questions here. Okay, so for Whitney, you said you have worked on smaller projects, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm an indie filmmaker and say I only have maybe 30, 50, $60,000 to make my short film,
Mhm.
I probably can't afford your full services, but you know, how does that work? Like what would your services be for someone on a smaller scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that just popped into my head is, back when I was music coordinating under a, big, well-known music supervisor, still kind of, getting my bearings and all of that. I would say a couple years in, it's like, I know what I'm doing. Um, you know, I think that could be a really good person to go out to, is like looking at who are the music coordinators that are working for the big time supervisors, right? Because they're going to be a little bit more flexible in terms of the fees that they accept, because they're still looking to get their own credits. So I think that looking at who are the music coordinators that are doing that. For me personally, I live in Hawaii. I love it here. I want to help the community however I can. So with projects that are based here, then I definitely am open to a conversation. I'm not going to like charge my full rate. So yeah, but I think when you're first starting out and maybe have like a tiny budget, I think that music coordinators are the way to go for sure.
And in general, just so we know, a music coordinator is what it sounds like, just coordinating under the music supervisor, kind of like a production manager and a production coordinator.
Yeah, for sure. And, in a lot of circumstances, the coordinator is doing just as much work, probably more of the hands-on work, right? Because if you have a big supervisor who's like in my position, I was working for a couple people that were working on massive films. And so a lot of times when they were really in the thick of it, they were caught up all day long on like studio calls and kind of dealing with bigger picture. And then I was running point on all of our TV shows, so like really kind of learning everything top to bottom. And, it's kind of a different subject, but for music coordinators, it is really important for them to start getting their own credits so that they can kind of blossom into being their own, music supervisor. So
that is so good to know. Yes. And then Julia, to you, I mean, I think Whitney talked about this, which was, I think if you're going to be talking about licensing music, do it early on and have those conversations early on, right? But I mean, I know, like I said, I had so much fun researching you guys, and you've worked at CBS and NBC Universal and all over, doing a wide range of things, right? Music clearances, licenses, all that stuff. As far as like our indie filmmakers here, right, that are up and coming, that are, like I said, are maybe making the $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 shorts, or potentially now we've had, 500 to a little over $1 million features being made in Hawaii. Anything else, like before they start or as they're going into it, that you think that they should be thinking about and considering from your perspective, from a legal standpoint?
I mean, we've already said this, but just think about the music and don't wait until the end, because I've seen this a lot where people either, some of the examples we've given earlier where they're tied, they have their heart set on a song that they're just not going to get for their budget, or it's not clearable or whatever. But also sometimes people just don't even think about it until they're in post-production, and then they're trying to clear stuff and trying to figure out what's going to work. Their budget's already shot, and they're calling people like, hey, I have $50, and it's offensive. and it's hard. It makes it hard for everybody, right? So think about it ahead, plan the music into your budget from the very beginning. Don't let it be an afterthought, I think, is the biggest thing. And then also, sorry, I'm going to get into like a little bit of the weeds here, but understanding how music clearances work. So Chaz mentioned this. Wipe that smile off your face, Chaz. So there's two sides to a song is kind of how we talk about it. And so just know, like, you don't only have one person to contact for every song that you're going to clear. Sometimes it will be, one entity, but don't plan on that. Plan on it, being a little bit of work. And when you think about how much money you're going to spend, understand that there are two sides to the song. So we talk about the musical composition, the publishing, it's like the underlying song that is written. And then there's the recording, the sound recording or the master. Those are two separate rights. They're two separate licenses that you need. So the legal jargon is, we talk about sync licensing, and that's kind of the word that we use, but technically sync licensing refers to the musical composition. That's the underlying song. And it's a master use license that refers to the master, the recording. And so everybody needs to understand that was like the 30-second version of something that could, we could spend all weekend talking about, but understand that and do a little bit of your own, self-educating to understand what you're dealing with, so that when you're, as a producer, if you're talking to your music supervisor, you know what they're talking about when they're explaining some of the clearance issues that they might be having, or, if you're talking to your friend who is going to be your composer, how's that going to play out and who owns what rights and everything. And just understand that it's more complicated than just making one phone call and, yeah, my friend said it's okay, we're all good. You need to be clearing multiple rights. And then also understanding, we kind of touched on this with the step deal thing, but like, what are the rights that you're getting and what are you actually able to do? And so if you're entering into, like, you have to be organized as you're going forward with distribution. If you have a step deal for one song, but everything else is just, you have these broad clearances, like, make sure that you're keeping track of that so you don't forget and then end up at a point where, like, you got the Netflix deal, great, we're moving forward, you submit all the deliverables, and then you're like, oh crap, we forgot to take that song out. We didn't have the rights. And so, we see stuff like that happen too. So you just have to be really organized and on top of it. I forget what the question was, but I will get off my soapbox.
No, that was it. It was, what do they need to know? Which is what you're answering. Okay. Yeah. So Whitney, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback because it's so important. And another piece of jargon that we use often is this concept of a one-stop song, right? And so when we say one stop, we mean you're clearing the publishing, the composition, as well as the master. It means the same person controls both sides. So another value add to having a music supervisor is we have relationships with a ton of different companies, just like Marmoset, licensing companies that represent entire catalogs that they have one stop. So another creative solution when you're working with a limited budget is to go to a company and say, hey, can we do a blanket deal? And that's where you'll come up with a flat fee or whatever it looks like. You can come up, this is all, the other thing is that there's no like set fees here. Everything is negotiable. And so that's another, value of having a supervisor is that we have these relationships. I can call it my buddies, and be very candid with them. And they know that I'm good for it. I might say, hey, I have this super low budget project. I promise I'm going to get you back on the next one where I have a massive budget, right? So coming up with like a blanket deal so that you can work with one company. Now you have access to their whole catalog and you can get creative with these one-stop songs that they control.
That is so good to know. And I just want to clarify. So say you do have sync rights, then you have the rights to go record the song yourself. I mean, in theory, is that what I'm understanding? Or does it totally depend on the situation?
Yeah. So in theory, you could, so when we say sync rights, what we're talking about is the right to synchronize the musical composition with some audiovisual work. It's the right to put that together. That's what your sync license is for. Technically, it's a different right that's involved in going and recording your own music. If you're doing a cover, there are other licenses and mechanical licenses and structures in place so that people are compensated for that. But yeah, so yeah, it's not so simple as, yes, you can
I
do it.
see. No, I see what you're saying. So yeah, those are the steps though. The idea is if you want to play a song in your film, you either need to have sync and master rights, or you need to have sync rights, then you get the rights to cover it, and then you can use that.
And you'll notice, like, in a lot of films, there will be covers, right? It'll be like, whatever huge Whitney Houston song, but it's not Whitney Houston singing, right? And a lot of artists will perform covers and record covers, and they know that might be kind of syncable because folks can't afford, whatever the label is charging for that master use license. So you see that come up a lot as well as kind of an alternative option.
Awesome. And then for Chaz and Farnell, like if, as a filmmaker, if I'm like, okay, I want to maybe use some music from your catalog, right? What are the steps to like, because it's a big catalogs that you have, and if I don't have time to like listen to every song.
True.
What do I do?
Yeah, with Marmoset, you would contact us, and one of our what we call client services, one of our sales folks will reach out to you, talk to you, try to find the whole parameters of what you're trying to do. What are you looking for? Is it just one song, or is it a slew of songs that you need? Are you going to license one song, or are you going to do a blanket? And basically, you might say, hey, I have 3 directions, 3 different scenes. You explain these 3 different scenes, and you tell us what type of songs you want in those 3 different scenes. And then they send it over to my team on search, and we basically go through our catalog, finding every song that we believe that can fit the description, lyrical theme, or music theme, depending on era, years, genre, style, and everything. We collect all of that information up, highlight our couple songs we believe is like the spotlight, send it back to our client services, and our client services reaches out to you. So you'll be in contact with Marmoset through them. And that's how, and then when you're done, they will do all the paperwork and get all of those things for you so that you don't have to worry about any legal things and such. As an independent composer, typically I work with a director out of LA, Michelle Noble, and she's just a fan of my music. So I could just send her a folder of like, hey, what are you looking for? Funk, soul, jazz, Latin music, and wrap it up and send it on over to her. And she could just say, hey, I love this, I love this, I love that, because we have a personal working relationship together. But, with Chaz, he's doing the same thing on his side with all of his people he represents and such.
Yeah. And what I would say is like, yeah, when you reach out to Marmoset, yeah, please tell them like, hey, we want music from Hawaii. And some of my music is there as well, or people we work with. I also mentioned, similar to Farnell, like we'd love to just build relationships with filmmakers, wherever level they're at, because we do believe like that relationship can blossom into something, like with time. Julia in our 20s, like she was, studying to become an entertainment lawyer. I knew like, wow, that's amazing. Maybe one day she'll be my entertainment lawyer, while I was cutting my teeth in LA, playing for money, and stuff. But yeah, we'd send you a private link, and we'd want to understand, what you're looking for, parameters. And we have a range of music in different tiers, and a lot of that is one stop as well. I'd also say that if you're looking for bespoke music, yeah, we also would love to figure out a way, to do that, and there's things involved like budget, of course, but also as time, can we, do we have enough time to do that bespoke custom? And we have composers that we represent that we think would be, great to fulfill those requests as well.
Awesome. So now I just want to flip it in case, musicians and artists on that side are tuning in, and to say, what are their steps if they want to be represented, right?
Yeah, I mean, for them, that's the great thing about Marmoset, because part of my job as the A&R, catalog manager, and the lead, that I'm always on the lookout for like new talent, uh, all over the place. I'm on everything. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads, I'm on Twitter, I'm on all of the things, and just finding talent and signing them over to Marmoset, and then also helping them understand what are they're getting into. Because a lot of people say, "Hey, I want to get my music in TV and film," and I'm like, "Okay, that's great, but there's a lot of steps to that, as far as like how to organize your music and how to prepare your music and have it so that you can hand it to someone like myself." Uh, Shameless plug, I wrote a ebook about it called Sync Your Sound, because I was frustrated from all of my years being an A&R, and I wrote an ebook about just helping artists organize their music, not to write for TV and film, but just to organize what they have and get it prepared. But the great thing for an independent artist is coming to a place like Marmoset, because we've built the relationship, 16 years of relationships with film houses, agencies, mom and pop shops, you know, up and coming creators who later go into major films and things like that. So it's good, because then you don't have to, the artist doesn't have to try to chase these opportunities down. They don't have to chase down the supervisors and things like that. They could come to one company and we could pitch their music for all of those things. So they could contact, us at Marmoset. We have our contact on a website. A lot of people are sliding in to my DMs and things like that. And I'm always telling folks like, hey, go check out the book first, then send me the link when it's organized, because I want them to really be able to have the best foot forward and make it hard for me to say no to them and such. And also, I didn't get into sync license until um, I became an artist at Marmoset, but I didn't really understand it until I started as an employee. So I was in my 40s until I really understand sync license, and now this is like what I eat, sleep, and breathe every day. So.
And Chaz, did you want to add anything to that as far as like Hawaii musicians?
Yeah. So we try to make license or sorry, getting music in a state, preparing it for people like Farnell, really easy, because Farnell as an A&R, he doesn't want to usually, like I would guess, clean up all of your metadata or make sure everything is buttoned up, licensed, licensable, copyright, all the collaborators information. And as a publisher, that's what we do. Same thing, right? Like a music supervisor like Whitney does not want to receive or hear from you, or even if she's interested in your music, to have to go and explain that process for you. And there are amazing supervisors, sometimes out there that are willing to take those extra steps and go that step. And I'm not saying Whitney wouldn't. She 100% would for people here in Hawaii, but it's our role as publishers to help you, composers, artists, musicians, songwriters, producers, do that. And we love doing that. We employ more people in our company specifically to help with those needs. We should also clarify that when Farnell says sign your music, he doesn't mean sign to own. He means sign to represent. And that could be non-exclusive or exclusive. And non-exclusive means you can take it elsewhere, and other people, such as myself, can also represent that music simultaneously.
Yeah, I just want to throw this one in. Someone in the comments was talking about music conferences. That's a great way to meet folks like Chaz, myself, and Whitney and Julia and all of us. But definitely, I want to shout out, the Hawaiian Songwriting Festival. That's where I met Whitney and Julia at. I already knew Chaz, but it's a great opportunity for, to be with and rub shoulders and learn from these people who has so much experience and in licensing and getting their music in TV and film. And I feel like for a place like Hawaii is not as distracting as Nam and LA and such, and it's a good place. Like I do mentor sessions. I love them. I sign a lot of artists from mentor sections, and also I signed an artist 2 years ago at the Hawaiian Songwriting Festival who has gotten our biggest license this year so far, and it was in the six figures. So yeah, shout out the Hawaiian Songwriter Festival. Come out. We want to see you.
Registration will open very soon.
Julie is the
Excellent.
president.
Excellent.
I'm on the board.
We will post about that when you guys are ready. Send it over and we will share about that for sure. Yeah, so I'm glad Farnell brought up the questions because we've got some more questions I was hoping to get into here. So Jen May is our education director, and I know she's invited a lot of our interns and students onto this. So we do have probably some of the next generation of filmmakers watching and very eager to learn. And she says here, if you're advising a high school or college student who's interested in music for film, what would you tell them to focus on over the next 5 years?
I would say whatever that looks like whatever part of this process or music in general, find people that are doing exactly what see yourself doing in those 5 years or 10 years, and just go up to them and be like, hey, will you be willing to have a conversation with me, or can I meet with you once a month for the next 3 months? It's like speed dating, and sometimes it's better when you approach us than when we approach you. We want to know that you care about it more than we do. And what I would also say is that there are some amazing programs out there, and YouTube University is definitely a great supplement, but it's not everything. And a lot of times you have to really vet where that information is coming from and what perspective it represents for those people sharing that experience on their channels. I think that UCLA has such a great extension course for music supervision and business specifically, and that means you don't have to spend 4 years in college. Um, but I found out way too late personally what this industry and what this music making was like. I thought I had to either be a producer or an artist, so I spent a lot of my early years doing those things. And I think some great resources are in people, from their experiences and our teachers, and they can take the condensed version of their difficult experiences or experiments and failures and give it to you in a manner where you can take it and not have to go through that struggle bus of 5 or 10 years.
Coffee. Ask us out
Coffee.
for coffee. Who doesn't like well, there are some people, but yeah, definitely get to know people. That's where the conferences come in important at, because or find organization near you or in your own town. We throw when I say we, I mean me and my business partner Hunter Love. We have an organization called Formation Sound, and we host a meeting the first Saturday of every quarter at Marmoset Music, where it started out at like 20 something musicians. Now every quarter we have like 80 musicians there, and composers and artists and folks who are just, wanting to rub elbows, get to know other folks that's doing what they would like to do. I always believe, like, find those people that's doing what you want to do. Go meet them. Go learn the art of following up, not being annoying, but just being very personable and getting to know people and such. Even if you got to do some light stalking, show up to their talks, show up to their events, pick their brains, and so you could get to that place. I did the same thing when I was in sync and when I was a musician. I hung out with the musicians that I wanted to be with and tour with, and got to know. So, but definitely for me, it always starts with coffee.
Yeah, lunch doesn't hurt, right? Take somebody who offer to you, take them to lunch, you take them out. Yeah, thank you so much. So we have another one here that says, with TikTok and other social media apps, are filmmakers and music supervisors actually looking at viral songs for sync opportunities, or would you say those trends are pretty separate from film storytelling?
I would say they're pretty separate. Unless like I've had a scene in a TV show where it's like I was working on a medical drama and they wanted to have the doctors do like a TikTok dance, and so we went through and we saw what was trending, but it was very specific to that. I think that record labels are looking at that in terms of which artists they're signing. But as far as supervising and looking for songs for specific moments, I think unless it's like that example I gave, it's kind of not super related.
So in general, I think it's the more traditional route of like, what is the vibe, right, that the artist is looking for versus, yeah, the other way around. Awesome. Okay, there was another question on here. Oh yes, from Jen May. Okay, so I think several of you could speak to this, but what are the opportunities that exist for Hawaii film music industries for young people who want to get started? I think you basically touched on that, actually. You talked about like possible, like going to the conference, for example, or, looking for different organizations, finding other musicians. Are there any other opportunities that you can think of as far as, trying to like break into the industry?
I believe West Oahu has a really great creative media program that's been building. I haven't met, students coming out of that program yet, um, but I believe that that's a really great program from what I'm hearing and their facilities. I know that what is it called? The Queen Leokalani Center, in that's across from what is it? The hall, Blaisdell Hall, also has some facilities and amazing recording studios that they just opened for Native Hawaiian students. Um, if you want to reach out and just check out what we're doing, like we're not a public studio. We don't record people, like they can't like book studio time. We just work on our projects. So sorry. But yeah, just reach out. Maybe you can come, just stop by, like coffee. We
Yeah.
all started as interns, right? Farnell was a 40-year-old intern. My last internship, I was 30. Julia intern, Whitney,
I
was the
had
intern,
9
music
internships.
coordinator.
Sorry, we have another question. Can you just repeat, because I'm not sure if this person heard it, but they're saying, are there conferences in Hawaii and how may filmmakers attend? So can you just plug that again, what you were just saying?
Yeah. The Hawaii Songwriting Festival on the Big Island at the Westin Hapuna. It's this year on September 10th. Um, and you know what? There aren't a lot of filmmakers, or sometimes there's musicians who are also filmmakers that attend. I would say like you can come and be the minority and you'll have all of these people all to yourself, because you are the one person that's like you. I first went to it as a scholarship attendee, and then later I went as an artist with a band. And so because we were like one of the few bands, we garnered everybody's attention. They're like, we want to work with you. There's no one else like you here. But there's also the HIF conference. And last year was your inaugural year, I believe. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to encourage all of my music friends to be there. I want to sponsor it. We need to blow that up as well.
Absolutely. I can plug that for a minute. We're going to have our second annual industry conference. And yes, Chaz, we would love to have you. And I know you're going to do the speakers for us this year, right? So we can have a better PA system. But yes, the HIF Industry Conference is going to be this year on October 24th and 25th. So that's a great opportunity for filmmakers to come together, also musicians. And like you said, Chaz, as a musician, you could come to the HIF Industry Conference and you're the one that's like the minority, but then you get to talk to all these filmmakers and be like, I'm a musician. This is the kind of music I make. Put my music in your film, right? And make those connections. And like Farnell said, you could develop lifelong relationships both ways, right? Where you're like, oh, I got to meet this person before their music is now streaming on Apple and the hit music. And so, we have a good relationship, and vice versa. Like as a musician, you can get in with like, oh, here's this filmmaker I'm going to get in when they're making these indie films. And now they're going to go on to make a $20 million or $30 million Hollywood film, and they can take me with them as a musician, right? So we want those connections. Okay,
Can I plug a couple other
oh,
organizations real
yeah,
quick? So
please, please.
the Hawaii Film Alliance is another one. And then I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but it's like the Hawaii Filmmakers Collective.
Yeah, I used to be the executive director there.
Okay,
So
okay.
Hawaii Filmmakers Collective is also in Kaimuki. So if anyone on here is interested, is like, you know, trying to get in on the ground level, there's really no gatekeeping at HFC. Like once you join as a member, there's a monthly writers, directors, producers, and in-person meetup. There's a pitch meeting every 4 months where you can pitch your short film and get $1,000 help to make it. And then there's a 48-hour film challenge in the spring and a 72-hour film challenge in the fall. So it's a really awesome organization. And it's actually a place where, like, if you need a quiet space to go, I mean, it's not a sound recording studio, but you know, as members, you can rent the space and you can go and shoot stuff or record stuff there. You could build your own little sound booth in there. We've done that before. And Hawaii Women in Filmmaking is another one, since we're just like naming film organizations.
And I think that the value for all of these is it's the networking, it's finding collaborators, it's like a lot of the HFC stuff that they do. It just gets you creating and doing stuff, which is so important. It's like, as creative people, and I say this as a not creative person, but like, you have to be doing both, right? You have to be networking and learning the business and all of that, but you also have to create and you have to find a way to balance both of those things. And so I love organizations like that. Like, my husband did one of their programs and he just kind of did it because he had a project he wanted to work on, and it has turned into something that has led to so much more work and so many more connections and so many great collaborations. And so you never really know where things are going to end up. This goes for musicians or filmmakers. But if you just keep moving, my dad always says this, keep moving in some direction, but just keep going and keep meeting people. And, you know, you have to protect yourself and put up boundaries, but like, don't say no ever, because you never know, you know, 5-10 years down the line where things are going to end up. Like, we're all sitting here because I went up to some guys at a random Grammy event in Portland and drank Bloody Marys with them and ended up getting an internship at Marmoset. And, you know, 5 years later, invited Farnell's boss, Ryan, to come to this Hawaii Songwriting Festival. And here we are. You know, you just never know where things are going to lead. And that's what's super exciting about it. And there's so much energy in Hawaii right now in these creative spaces. So if you're a young person who's like, ooh, I want in, like, you will be welcomed. You just have to put yourself out there and show up to stuff, and it'll happen.
I also help run Creative Mornings in our Honolulu chapter, and it's every last Friday of the month at SALT at Arakaka'ako. And we have creators of all shapes and forms. I've met some filmmakers there. I've met other music folks there, and I also curate the music and the media there at that event every month. So you should come out. It's free. We have coffee, free breakfast sometimes. Just come out, have a great time. You'll meet a lot of folks.
And then I think I don't think I plugged our own HIFILM membership as well, because that's also an entry point, right, to get into the industry here. So for $100 a year, you can be a HIFILM member, and we have events every month. So this is our HIFILM event for this month, and it was free for all HIFILM members, right, to stream and join. And they also have access to past panels that we've had, but we also have in-person networking events. We have the conference, right, Chaz, like you said, and if you're a HIFILM member, you get first access to buy a pass to the conference, because we only sell 100 tickets, and that's all, and they sell out. So that's, you know, that's a perk. We do have about, let's just say, like 5 minutes or so left. So there was a couple more questions. I think some people might have missed the beginning about, like, when we went through the process. So I don't want to go through it all over again. But some people are kind of asking, like, here's one. If you're producing a film or jukebox musical built entirely around cover songs, what does the music clearance process actually look like from development through distribution? Like I said, you guys already touched on this. So I can already say from what I learned, and you can correct me, but it is, you know, you're going to get a music supervisor, hopefully, and that person is going to deal with all of that for you. But what they're going to do is they're going to make sure you have the sync rights and the master rights to any given jukebox, or right, like a song that's already been out there. And then within that, perhaps they will build the step contract. Yeah, you tell me if I'm like saying this right. And then from there, it's that, right? The step contract is going to say like, okay, yeah, if you're just going to festivals, it's going to be this rate, but then we can build in there that if you get distribution or theatrical release, that it's going to be more. But is there anything different when it comes to, say, working with a musician who's up and coming with Chaz versus, no, I want this Taylor Swift song,
Yes, I saw Farnell giggling. Farnell knows this is a very expensive thing to do and very tricky. If we're talking about cover songs, it's kind of a different ball game, especially if you're talking about big, well-known songs that are, especially if it's an artist that has also written the song, they're going to jack up the price for you to just license the publishing and to not use their recording. So, and they might not be open to a step deal. They might say they will only license for all media, and it'll be really, really expensive. So, I mean, that like a jukebox musical idea, you have to have like serious cashola to even start to think about that. Anything that you can like hum the melody to and people are going to recognize is going to cost you an arm and a leg, period.
So just so we know, we're talking like tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, just in general.
It depends.
Totally depends. Totally depends. What's the range, Farnell? It's all about
it could be anything. It depends on how many songs. If they want an album, a film with all cover songs, you're looking at, starting at $100,000 per song easily. That's if, you got to remember how many people on the song. Say if it's a Rihanna song, and it might be like 10 writers and all of these people. So it's just
samples.
That's why they come to someone like us and get the sound alike that's very close. They can't get Hey Mr. Postman from Motown, but they could get a song from Chicago in the 60s that sounds just very similar, so that could keep the price down.
But
absolutely,
anything recognizable is going to cost you a lot. Like Farnell said, $100K is like, that could be on the low end. It just depends.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to put those numbers out there because that's what I was thinking as well. Like I'm thinking like, right, I know even like I remember when Magic Mike came out and they had a Rihanna song in the trailer, but they did not have it in the film. So, there's even those little things, right? Okay, so maybe let's do one or two more questions. Okay, so Michelle is saying, what do you do about songs that were cleared only for film festivals, but then you plan to distribute on YouTube? Do you have to get a composer to replace the music to be able to stream it on YouTube? Who wants to take that?
I can take it. So yeah, if you don't have the rights, don't do it. So you need to, either, find a new song, or go back to them and say, hey, you know what? I know we had only talked about this. Now we want to do this, but it's going to cost you more. So that's why sometimes it can be nice to put it together all in one deal, like a step deal from the beginning, so that it's clear where you're going and at least you kind of have it all budgeted. At the same time, sometimes you don't know what your budget will look like at those later dates. So maybe there are, strategic reasons that you want to not go there yet. But yeah, the important thing is in this scenario, don't put it on YouTube if you don't have the rights to put it on YouTube.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just say I actually dealt with this recently. I was working on a short for one of the actors in my show that I'm working on, School Spirits, was working on a short, and I did it as a favor. And we found a really cool, like Farnell was saying, they loved this like old disco track, but it had a bunch of samples and was going to be not clearable at all. And so we found them something similar vibe, vintage, cool company, not as cool as Marmoset, but they were able to do, I think it was $1,000 for festival rights, and then for streaming, which would incorporate YouTube, I think it was an additional $1,000. So nothing crazy, but you do want to be prepared to pay for those additional streaming rights.
But that's still very reasonable, what you're saying, for something that is going to accomplish something that might have cost $50,000 to $100,000 if you got the original song, right?
Yeah.
And then Chaz, I don't, is that you, Chaz, typing in the chat?
It's
Or
me.
is, okay, yeah. So you're talking about, if you just want to real fast say what you typed in the chat about public domain songs that say, like you said, you just did a cover to Singing in the Rain, right? So that skips over the need for sync rights. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So if it's entered into the public domain, you can search that online what those songs are. You don't have to secure the composition, the public, the copyright for the composition rights. It's just the master recording rights you have to license. And companies like Marmoset or Whitney's Network or ourselves, like we have public domain cover songs. And the songs that are entering into the public domain now are still within the cultural consciousness. I would say more so than a couple years ago, like Singing in the Rain, Ain't Misbehaving, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Georgia on My Mind. There's a lot of this music that's entering into the public domain right now. And I would say if you're doing a jukebox project, then maybe consider working with um, cover versions of those songs, because we don't need to get the cover re-recording rights for those particular instances. And we might have it in a format or genre style that might match what you're looking for your project.
So basically do an oldies jukebox musical if you're going to do one.
Yes.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in?
Not, yeah, yeah.
This is like an anxious person who used to work at a studio too. Like a lot of times the internet will tell you that something is public domain. It might only be public domain in certain territories. So you really have to make sure that it's PD worldwide. There's no hard and fast rule, but I think something that we kind of generally go by is 100 years from the author's death is like kind of a safe space. But sometimes you have, this is a whole, it's like Julia's saying, like getting in the weeds. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but sometimes you like need to hire a musicologist to like confirm that it's public domain. So I would just say to be a little bit careful about that. But working with a company like Marmoset, they're going to have resources where they can pull some more informed kind of information for you. But PD can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
And one more thing on that point too, specifically with respect to Hawaiian music, traditional Hawaiian music can be really hard to clear because people don't know, right? And there are lots of songs that everybody knows, and everyone has different stories about where they came from and who wrote it and when they wrote it and who they wrote it for and who it was gifted to. And so I don't want to scare people away from licensing Hawaiian music, because I think it's really important, especially for Hawaiian storytellers, to be able to use the music that comes from here. But just know that it's going to be more difficult. It's going to take your attorney or your music supervisor more time and resources to do the research and make sure that things are done correctly. You might also end up including more language in your contracts to have indemnifications and representations and things to try to create some insulation from liability. But it is tricky. But I would hope that doesn't always necessarily just scare people away from using traditional Hawaiian music. And or there's also lots of new Hawaiian music being written that with people who, like Chaz, understand things more, and they're being a little bit more business savvy and composing with that in mind. And trying to make things licensable. So you have a lot of great resources there as well.
Yeah. And a lot of the traditional music or even new melody, you have to ask if it's a derivative of an older version. Because if it is, it's still, same legal issues as the original composition. So it might be new to us, but if it's derivative of something that's not in the public domain, then it's not clear to use.
Awesome. This is so helpful. And there's more questions and we could go on forever, but I know, I want to respect your time, and Farnell's, it's late for him. I think one of the questions that was just posed was basically like, what are the essential steps that filmmakers should take? But what I'm hearing is work with a music supervisor or an entertainment attorney, or you might need to get a musicologist. But the point is, don't try to do it yourself. There are professionals out there who do this, and people like Whitney who might be willing to do a cut on your rate because if you're a Hawaii-based indie filmmaker, right? And that's it. Like, that seems to be the thing, is like, go with the professionals, because you know all the different things. And that answers even the question down here about, territories. And, somebody asked about, like, why do we have you know, it's cleared, this music is cleared in this territory or this country, but not here. So someone like you, Julia, or Whitney, or a musicologist could answer that and would know all that. So that's, I think, the answer is work with the pros. But yeah, like we could just go on forever, but I'm going to just say thank you so much for this. And I think all local, you know, local filmmakers now, they have your names, right? And they know they can reach out to you. And they can, and folks, you can almost reach out to me if you have follow-up, anything, right? My email is jana@hif.org, jana@hiff.org. I am the industry manager at HIF, so I am here to support all local filmmakers and creators. And yeah, I just want to mahalo you all again. If you panelists stick around, then Aaron and I can properly mahalo you in private. But I want to thank everybody else for joining and have a wonderful night.